space was a cathedral of silence. In the black expanse beyond the orbit of Neptune, the listening array Argus Deep 13 had been asleep for 27 years. Its receivers had not picked up anything more interesting than stray pulsar waves or static from long-dead satellites. It was a relic of Earth's paranoia, a relic of a time when humanity feared that something might one day come knocking. And then, it woke up. The sound that came through its wideband receiver wasn't static. It was structured. Rhythmic. Almost human. And it was screaming. The war room of the ESS Vanguard was bathed in a low, red light as the transmission played for the 5th time. The voice, alien, desperate, was strained to the point of breaking. Even without translation, the message was clear: someone was begging for help. Commander Marcus Hale stood at the central holotable, his jaw clenched tight, the glow of the holographic waveform reflecting in his steel-gray eyes. The war room's air was cold, humming with the vibration of the Vanguard's reactor somewhere deep below. "Play it again," he said. Lieutenant Sarah Bennett, the helmswoman, glanced at him, her fingers brushing the controls. The room filled once more with the otherworldly wail. The voice cracked and faltered halfway through, replaced by a shrill burst of interference as if whatever sent it had been cut off mid-sentence. Dr. Evelyn Cross, their lead xenolinguist, stood off to one side, her face pale in the glow of her console. She had been running the signal through every known cipher for 3 hours straight. "It's not a distress beacon in any standard galactic format," she said finally, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "But it's not random either. The structure is too deliberate. This was meant to be heard, and by someone who could do something about it. Someone like us," Marcus said. At the far end of the table, Admiral James Rourke shifted in his chair. He was a big man, the kind who carried the weight of too many battles behind his eyes. "What about the source? You have a location?" "Triangulated from 3 listening posts," Evelyn replied, pulling up a star map. A red marker appeared near the edge of known space. "System designation, Theta 47. No known human colonies, no council presence. Deep fringe." Rourke leaned forward. "How far?" "For jumps," Sarah said, her voice quiet. The Admiral's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then we'd better get moving." The Vanguard was not built for subtlety. She was the pride of Earth's Titan-class warships, a kilometer of armored steel and fury, with weapons designed not just to defeat fleets, but to erase threats from existence. When she moved, the void seemed to take notice. Her engines ignited with a low, thrumming roar as she rose from her dock, flanked by her 2 escorts, the ESS Hammerfall and ESS Judicator. Their combined firepower was enough to make even the Galactic Council think twice, though no one said that part out loud. Inside, the crew prepared in silence. Gun crews ran their final checks, missile bays were loaded, fighter squadrons prepped for launch. Even the ship's AI designation oracle spoke in a tone that felt quieter than usual, as if it, too, sensed the weight of what lay ahead. Marcus stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back as Earth's curve shrank to a pale crescent on the viewscreen. For a moment, a rare flicker of doubt crossed his face. "What do you think we're going to find out there?" Sarah asked softly from her station. Marcus didn't answer at first. He let the silence stretch until the jump drive began to hum, its capacitors building toward a deafening crescendo. "Something that didn't survive," he said at last. "And something that didn't want to be next." Jump space was always disorienting, but this time it felt worse. The Vanguard's hull groaned as she tore her way through folded dimensions, riding a corridor of shimmering blue light toward Theta 47. The crew moved like ghosts, their voices low, their faces tight with unspoken questions. When they emerged, the void was not empty. It was burning. Gasps broke out across the bridge. Theta 47's 3rd planet filled the screen, its surface cracked and glowing. Great firestorms raged across continents. Whole oceans boiled where orbital strikes had hit. "God," Sarah whispered. Scanning, Ensign David Ruiz reported from Tactical, his fingers flying across the console. Reading massive energy signatures, residual from heavy weapons fire. Civilian population, minimal. Less than 1% of biosigns remain. Find me what's left of their cities, Marcus said, his voice like iron. The screen shifted, zooming in on what had once been a metropolis. Now it was a graveyard. Twisted metal and shattered towers stretched for miles, glowing faintly red against the night. Then Ruiz's voice cut through the silence, sharp with alarm. Contact. Multiple unknowns, vectoring toward us fast. Battle stations. Marcus barked. Red lights strobed through the bridge as klaxons wailed. Crew scrambled to their posts, gun batteries powered up, shields flared to life around the hull. Evelyn's console beeped. Sir, those survivors I mentioned? They're alive, but trapped. We're picking up faint energy beacons, shelters, maybe. If we don't get them soon, they won't make it. Marcus's gaze didn't waver from the incoming contacts. Then we get them. But we're not leaving until we know what did this. On the tactical screen, black shapes appeared, like blades slicing through the stars. Sleek, triangular warships, unlike anything in Earth's catalog databases, formed a loose crescent, cutting off the Vanguard's approach. Unknown fleet is locking weapons, Ruiz reported. The Vanguard's railguns rotated into position with a smooth, deadly grace. Good, Marcus said quietly. Let them make the first mistake. And in that moment, as the enemy fleet closed in, something shifted aboard the Vanguard. Every crew member felt it, not fear, not dread, but a quiet resolve. They were no longer just answering a distress call. They were standing at the edge of something much bigger. Whatever had happened here, whatever horror had scoured this world clean, would not stop until someone stopped it. Marcus's voice cut through the charged silence like a blade. Helm, bring us to intercept. Weapons free on my mark. The Vanguard's engines flared, and the deadliest warship Earth had ever built moved to meet the unknown. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity did not ignore screams for help. And it did not forgive. The first of the unknown ships appeared as a silhouette against the stars, sleek, triangular, and so black it seemed to swallow the starlight around it. Then another emerged. Then another. Within seconds, dozens of them slid into view, forming a crescent wall between the Vanguard and the burning planet below. The bridge was silent but electric, every crew member staring at the tactical display. There, just watching us, Lieutenant Sarah Bennett said quietly from the helm. Marcus Hale didn't answer right away. His eyes narrowed as he studied the formation. The enemy ships were too disciplined, too deliberate. They were waiting for something, some signal, some justification. Open a broadband channel, Marcus ordered. Static hissed, then a voice crackled through the comms, alien, harsh, mechanical, rendered in jagged bursts by the ship's translator. Human vessels, it said, the words layered in a tritone growl. Leave this place. The culling is complete. Your presence is irrelevant. The words hung in the air like ice. Admiral James Rourke leaned forward, his hands gripping the edge of the holotable. This is Admiral Rourke of the Sol Defense Fleet. You have slaughtered an entire world. Stand down immediately or you will be fired upon. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then came a sound that needed no translation, laughter. They think us merciful, the alien voice hissed. We will show them despair. And then space exploded. The first volley of plasma lances came from the left flank, streaking toward the Vanguard like burning spears. Brace! Sarah shouted. The ship shuddered as the shields absorbed the impact, the lights flickering across the bridge. Deep within the hull, massive capacitors screamed as they bled energy into the shield generators. Shields holding. Ensign David Ruiz called from tactical. Minor fluctuations on the port array. Return fire, Marcus said coldly. The Vanguard's forward batteries roared. 2 hypervelocity rail slugs tore across the void, slamming into the nearest alien ship. The impact was devastating, armor plating ripped away, the vessel split in half, and for a brief moment its burning core illuminated the darkness like a small sun. But there were more. Dozens of alien ships surged forward, black shapes blotting out the stars, their weapons firing in coordinated salvos. The Hammerfall and Judicator joined the fray, their own railguns unleashing hell, each shot carving fire through enemy ranks. The void became a storm of light. Marcus moved across the bridge like a man carved from steel, his voice calm amid the chaos. Keep the formation tight. Helm, keep our nose pointed at their center line. Ruiz, prioritize targets closing on the planet. Aye, sir. Ruiz's fingers flew across his console, marking enemies for destruction. But the enemy kept coming. They're trying to drive us off, Evelyn Cross said from her station, her voice tense. They don't want us near the survivors. They're not driving us anywhere, Marcus growled. Not while there's anyone left down there to save. The Vanguard dropped into a lower orbit, her massive frame glowing red from re-entry friction as she skimmed the upper atmosphere. Below, the planet burned like a funeral pyre. Dropships launched from the underbelly of the Titan-class warship, screaming toward the surface. Dropships away, Sarah reported. Cover them, Marcus ordered. The Vanguard's guns pivoted downward, unleashing precise bombardments. Hypersonic shells rained like judgment, tearing apart alien ground forces converging on the last shelter signals. In the distance, the Hammerfall engaged 3 enemy cruisers at point-blank range. One of the alien ships rammed her starboard flank, detonating in a massive fireball that rocked even the Vanguard. Hammerfall reports heavy damage. Ruiz shouted. Tell them to hold. Rourke barked. They break formation, we lose the dropships. Inside the atmosphere, chaos reigned. The dropships skimmed through smoke and ash, their pilots weaving through debris fields and collapsing buildings. On the bridge, Evelyn's console came alive with incoming biometrics. I'm reading survivors, hundreds of them. They're being loaded aboard now. Good, Marcus said, eyes still on the tactical display. Keep the guns hot. Anything moves within 5 kilometers of those evac zones, we erase it. For 30 minutes, the Vanguard became death incarnate. Her guns tore apart enemy armor columns, her missiles vaporized landing craft, and her point defense systems shredded fighters before they could even approach the dropships. But the cost was brutal. Hull integrity warnings flashed across the status displays. The Vanguard's shields had dropped to 60%, then 40%, then 30%. Fires broke out on Deck 9, forcing damage control crews to fight smoke and flames in 0G while the ship kept firing. Still, Marcus refused to pull back. Dropships returning. Sarah called. Marcus exhaled slowly. Get them aboard and initiate emergency jump prep. Ruiz's voice cut across the bridge. Sir, their command ship is pulling closer, looks like they're preparing a final strike. Oracle, Marcus said, addressing the ship's AI, give me firing solutions on their flagship. Solution locked, the AI replied in its calm, synthetic voice. Probability of kill, 91%. Marcus's jaw tightened. He looked across the bridge at Admiral Rourke. The older man gave a single nod. Fire. The Vanguard's spinal cannon charged with a deep, resonant thrum that could be felt through the deck plating. A moment later, a beam of blinding energy erupted from the bow, cutting across the void like the wrath of a star. The alien flagship didn't even have time to maneuver. The beam speared it midsection, burning through its shields, its hull, and its core reactor. For a fraction of a second, the ship seemed to hang there, glowing from within, then it tore apart in a chain reaction of explosions. The rest of the enemy fleet faltered. They're retreating. Ruiz shouted, his voice breaking with relief. They're pulling back to the outer edge of the system. Marcus didn't allow himself to relax. Predators didn't retreat unless they were planning to strike again. Recover the dropships, he ordered. As soon as we're green, we jump to the nearest safe system. Evelyn turned from her console, her expression grim. Sir, one of the survivors says this was the 5th world they've called. They're not going to stop. Marcus exchanged a glance with Rourke. The Admiral's expression was carved from stone. Then we stop them, Marcus said. Minutes later, the Vanguard's engines flared as the Titan-class warship prepared for jump. As the stars elongated into streaks of light, Marcus stood at the viewport, silent. The world they had just saved, or what was left of it, faded into darkness behind them. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. It was the beginning of a hunt. The refugee decks of the Vanguard were silent except for the soft hum of the life support systems. Commander Marcus Hale walked among the survivors. They were thin, fragile-looking beings, their gray-blue skin smeared with soot, their hollow eyes following him as he passed. Some clutched one another in terrified silence. Others just stared at the floor, their faces empty. "They've seen too much," Dr. Evelyn Cross said quietly as she came to stand beside him. Marcus nodded, his jaw tight. They watched their whole world die. She glanced at the datapad in her hands. "We've pieced together enough of their language to understand them. They call themselves the Vayari. And the ones who did this," her voice hardened, "they call themselves the Vraith. A warrior empire. They believe that any species reaching a certain level of development must be eliminated to keep the galaxy balanced." Marcus stared at the survivors again, his expression cold. "Balanced," he repeated, as though tasting the word. "They think genocide is balance." Evelyn lowered her voice. "They say 5 other worlds have already been culled. Entire civilizations gone. The Vraith won't stop. They're already planning their next strike." A beat of silence. "Then we hit them first," Marcus said. In the war room, Admiral James Rourke stood before the holotable as the Vanguard's officers assembled. A 3-dimensional map of the Orion Arm rotated above the table, glowing red where Vraith outposts and fleets had been detected. "We've intercepted their columns," Rourke said, his gravelly voice carrying through the room. "Their next target is 2 jumps from a Terran trade route. We're not waiting for them to come to us." Marcus stepped forward. "We hunt them. Every ship, every outpost, every supply line they have, we burn it to ash." There was a grim murmur of assent around the table. Rourke stabbed a finger toward the map's central red sphere. "And when we've torn them apart piece by piece, we take the fight to their homeworld." The room fell silent at that. "Sir," Evelyn said softly, "if we do that, there may not be a Vraith left when we're done." "Good," Rourke said flatly. "They started this war. We're going to end it." The campaign began within hours. The Vanguard and her escorts leapt from system to system like a hammer blow from the dark. Vraith patrols were ambushed and annihilated before they could even signal for help. Orbital shipyards were reduced to molten slag. Supply depots vanished in eruptions of fire. Each engagement was swift, surgical, merciless. The enemy began to scatter, their once united fleets fragmenting as they struggled to regroup. For the first time in living memory, the Vraith were being hunted. Weeks later, the Vanguard dropped out of jump space on the edge of the Vraith home system. The sight took Marcus's breath away. The planet loomed ahead, black and silver, with rings of shipyards and fortress platforms orbiting it like a crown of thorns. Hundreds of enemy warships patrolled the system, a living wall of steel between the Vanguard and her target. "Jesus," Sarah whispered from the helm. "That's their entire fleet." "Good," Marcus said. "Saves us the trouble of chasing them down." Admiral Rourke's voice was calm, cold. "All ships, form battle line. Target anything that moves." The battle began with a single flash. The Vanguard's main batteries fired first, rail slugs streaking through the void at a fraction of lightspeed. A Vraith dreadnought exploded before it could react, scattering debris across the battlefield. Then the system erupted into chaos. Hundreds of plasma lances, missile swarms, and railgun slugs crossed space in a storm of fire. Explosions bloomed like newborn suns. The Hammerfall led a flanking run, its broadside tearing apart a cluster of enemy cruisers before a concentrated plasma barrage breached its shields. The ship kept fighting, even as its hull split and atmosphere vented into space. "She's not going to hold," Ruiz shouted over the din. "Tell them to ram anything in their path," Marcus ordered grimly. Moments later, the Hammerfall plowed straight into an enemy carrier, its reactor overloading in a brilliant, blinding explosion that took half the enemy formation with it. "Godspeed," Rourke muttered under his breath. The Vanguard drove forward through the firestorm. Her spinal cannon unleashed blast after blast, each shot carving a path of destruction straight toward the planet below. Enemy destroyers swarmed her flanks, but point defense guns and interceptor squadrons cut them down in droves. On the bridge, sparks showered from ruptured consoles, the air thick with smoke. Shields down to 20%. Ruiz shouted. "Keep firing." Marcus barked. Finally, they broke through. The enemy fleet was in ruins, broken and scattered. The Vanguard Adjudicator, the last surviving Titan-class ships, moved into planetary orbit, their weapons turning toward the surface. "Sir," Evelyn said quietly, "their cities are below us. Millions of them. If we do this..." Marcus didn't look away from the viewport. "They made this choice when they burned those worlds." Admiral Rourke's voice cut through the silence. "Do it." The order went out. The Vanguard's guns opened fire, joined by the Judicators. The night side of the Vraith homeworld lit up like a sunrise. Orbital bombardment rained fire across the surface. Industrial zones, military command centers, shipyards, all were obliterated in thunderous waves of destruction. The planet fought back with everything it had: massive rail platforms, ground-based plasma batteries, but nothing could withstand the Titan-class barrage. One by one, the surface guns went silent. One by one, the cities died. When the last shot faded, the planet was cracked and burning, its once proud ring of shipyards now nothing but drifting wreckage. On the bridge, there was no cheer, no celebration. Only silence. Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper. "We just killed an entire species." "They called it a culling," Marcus said quietly. "We call it survival." Rourke turned to Ruiz. "Broadcast on all frequencies. Let every world know." Earth answered the call. "And we will answer again if we must." Marcus stared at the burning planet one last time. Then he turned away. "Set course for Sol," he said. The Vanguard turned slowly, her engines igniting as she leapt back into the stars, leaving behind nothing but ashes. Across the galaxy, in systems far from this war, listeners would soon hear the message carried on the winds of space. Earth's deadliest warships had answered a call that echoed across the stars. And the galaxy would never forget.